something, and before we dig into this Joe Biden autopen stuff, I need to explain why. Because when we talk about Joe Biden, anything about the Joe Biden era, whether it's autopen or the illegals, whatever it is, there is a tendency, an understandable tendency to say, okay, yeah, it sucked. We all know it sucked. Can't we just move on? It's over now, right? Let's just move on. That is the tendency. But listen, that way of thinking, if that's where you're at, no, we got too many problems now, I don't want to deal with it. If that is your way of thinking, then you should understand that's why no elites ever go down. Ever. That exact way of thinking. These people in government, wealthy people all the time, we'll focus on government people for now. They commit crimes. They do horrific things with their positions of power in the government. And then, well, there's always a new scandal, isn't there? There's always a new House. There's new Senate races, a new presidential race. People have new scandals, new problems, new good things, new bad things. And people just kind of want to move on. I'm just not interested in it. That mentality has crushed us. The lack of justice in this country, meaning wealthy people, elite people being held to account, the lack of justice in this country is crushing this country. And the mentality of it's over, we're done with it, let's move on, that is killing us. We have got to change that mentality, and we have got to start pressing our representatives to change how they act. The COVID, how many times have I brought up a COVID reckoning? You know, I haven't let that go. Oh, Jesse, let it go. It was a bad time. Yeah, a bunch of people turned into evil tyrants, and I want them all thrown in prison. That's justice. So back to Joe Biden's autopen. We have more details, but we have to explain something. The New York Times ran an article on Joe Biden's autopen stuff. The New York Times. Keep in mind, this is a publication, if we want to call it, I was about to call it a tabloid, that has been called the Treason Times on multiple occasions. I believe that was Ann Coulter who actually called him that. The New York Times is a communist front. It has been for a very, very long time. They will destroy Republicans every chance they get. They will protect, enable, push forward Democrats every single chance they get. So they run this piece. Jeff Zients, Joe Biden's chief of staff. What did he do? He used the autopen. Apparently gave permission to use the autopen. All those pardons. Remember the day the pardons came down? Not just the big ones, the Fauci's and those. We'll get to that in a minute. But the volume of pardons. It was just thousands and thousands. And everyone kind of looked around. Every president does it, and it's always gross. I'll just point that out. It's always gross. Every president does it. But Joe Biden did it. I mean, he was just letting scumbags out, as many as he could. How did that happen? Well, they just auto-penned it, basically. They said, well, here's a list. Joe, sign this. We have some additions to the list. Joe doesn't need to sign it. Let's just put the list out there. That's a really big deal. Now, the bigger deal is, why did the New York Times do this? Why? See, Mark Halperin on his show, he had an interesting little discovery about this article. Here he was.
I thought Joe Biden was pretty good in the interview. Well, but if this were a shoe were on the other foot, I can't believe the New York Times wouldn't have gone and gotten Adam Schiff's reaction. There's no Republican reaction in that story. Yeah, there's no legal expert quoted in the story. Biden is now taking the position that he could delegate pardons. Right? That's the position they took in the story. Everything else is fine. That's the one thing. So, what do law professors think about that? What do Republicans think about that? It's absent from the story. I don't understand that as a matter of journalism. And I guarantee you, if it were a Republican, they'd have both those things. They'd have some hysterical law professor saying this is an impeachable offense, and they'd have a Republican saying this needs to be investigated. It's absent from the story. It's mad.
Why? Why not get a statement from a Republican? Why not go get a legal expert? What's going on here? Because, boy, on the surface, wow, New York Times running an article like that? Are they on the up and up now? Man, holding a Democrat to account? Wow. Let me pause on that for a moment. I have two sons, as you know, James and Luke. And you know that I eat poorly. And you know my wife eats super healthy. You know that if you've watched the show for any length of time. One time when they were kids, there was a bag of chips in the cupboard. Now, she had told the boys she wanted them to eat fruit with their sandwiches for lunch. Boys said, okay. They ate the fruit, and then they went to the pantry and ate the entire bag of chips. She was very upset. And I thought it was funny. Two, I thought it was completely understandable. But I didn't want to badmouth my wife or defy my wife in front of the kids. But I also didn't want her to crack down on them, ground them. No, nothing but vegetables. So I took the boys aside in the room, and I gave them a very stern talking to with her in earshot. Came out of the room and said, don't worry, I got it taken care of. They won't do that again. I wasn't punishing the kids. I wasn't really interested in punishing the kids. I was interested in shielding them in that moment from their mother's wrath. The New York Times is well aware that Republicans are looking into the autopen scandal. They are well aware of what Donald Trump has said about it time and time again. He's not letting it go. This is not something Donald Trump's letting go at all. Here's Donald Trump talking about it.
I mean, you're talking about the autopen. Look, the autopen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years. This is a tremendous scandal. The people on the other side of the Resolute desk, I know them. Lisa, the whole group, and they're no good. They're sick people. And I guarantee he knew nothing about what he was signing. I guarantee it.
That's not a one-off. On social media, publicly, in the media, Donald Trump has said that exact same line over and over again. The biggest scandal in 50 to 100 years. The biggest scandal in 50 to 100 years. The president of the United States of America is not letting this go. And when the president doesn't let something go, there's going to be movement. They are investigating it. It is a very, very, very big deal. And let's pause for just a second and just remember, these people punished the American people almost like it was on purpose for 4 years. Things that, even if you're a Democrat, don't really make sense unless you just hate the country. Why would you just stop natural gas exports? Hold on. You not only opened up the border, let's say you're some soft on illegal immigration person. Okay, that's a fairly standard Democrat position. They flew as many people into the country as they possibly could, purposely invading the United States of America. They took your tax dollars and created an app so illegals could schedule their invasion of the country. How could you be that evil? How could Joe Biden be that evil? Well, that's the whole point. Joe Biden wasn't running anything. People who hate you and hate this country and have worked their entire lives to burn it down were finally presented with the most damaging weapon they could have been presented with. They were presented with the powers of the presidency. This human being, Anita Dunn, this human being was essentially the president of the United States of America.
And then the third lesson and tip actually come from two of my favorite political philosophers, Mao Zedong and Mother Teresa, not often coupled with each other. But the two people that I turn to most, in 1947, when Mao Zedong was being challenged within his own party on his plan to basically take China over, Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalist Chinese held the cities. They had the army. They had the Air Force. They had everything on their side. And people said, how can you win? How can you do this? How can you do this against all of the odds against you? And Mao Zedong said, you fight your war and I'll fight mine.
That was the president of the United States of America. Her husband, too. Jill Biden, that horrific witch. They ran the country for 4 years. And I'm very, very worried we're going to succumb to the same thing that's human nature. Hey, let's let it go. Let's let bygones be bygones. It's too old now. We're worried about just inflation now. No. These people savaged my country for 4 years. Somebody better be held to account. We will not let it go. It's a big deal. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. Josh, feeling good. What does that mean? Feeling good. I feel good. Well, look, sometimes when you don't feel good, you actually don't realize it. You just think that's the way it is. Well, I'm supposed to be out of energy at 2, 3 in the afternoon. Make a run to the office coffee pot. We just assume that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be forgetting things all the time, losing my train of thought. Well, it's just part of getting older. We say that stuff all the time, but that's not true. You shouldn't be out of energy at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. You shouldn't be forgetting things all the time. You do because your levels aren't where they need to be. So how do you address that? Go down to the local clinic, get a needle jammed in your arm? No. Naturally, natural herbal supplements from my friends at Chalk will change your entire life. No more making that run for the office coffee, unless, of course, you just enjoy it like I do from time to time. You'll find your mind works better, your energy's better, your mood is better. Try a male vitality stack from Chalk. 20% increase in your testosterone in 20 days. Ladies, they have a female vitality stack for you. Try it for 90 days. If you don't feel like a new person, cancel your subscription. But while they're offering a 17.76% discount, maybe time to take advantage. Chalk.com/JesseTV. All right, so that was enough heavy stuff for our side. Let's do something just for a couple minutes here that makes you, me, feel a little bit better. Let's trash Democrats. Listen, yes, I know we've got problems. No question about that. They are in complete disarray right now. Complete disarray. There's always, whenever a party loses an election, it happens with us, happens with them. When you lose an election, there's generally some sniping afterwards, some disagreements afterwards, because that's normal. Like that old JFK saying, victory has 1,000 fathers, defeat is an orphan. Who's to blame? I'm not to blame, you're to blame. So that's very common. But this Democrat after fighting just simply will not go away because they don't know what to do. And it really comes down to these basics. The Democrat Party is now guided by their most radical, insane base. That's just a fact. They have positions now, the party as a whole, not one random congressman, not just Jasmine Crockett or something like that. They have positions now as a party that are radically out of step with normal Americans. I'm not talking about me. I hate everything about them. I'm talking about normal Americans. You tell a normal American that you should open up the border and that your son should chop his penis off and become a woman. Normal Americans say, okay, who are you people? They're wildly out of step with normal Americans. And some people inside the Democrat Party know it. It's not that they don't believe those crazy things, but they know we should probably shut up about the tranny stuff. It doesn't play well. But then remember, we just discussed the radicals have taken over the party and they're making the calls. And so anyone who's attempting to be an adult, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Barack Obama, who I despise, he knows what's playing well and what's not playing well. Remember, the man got elected twice. He knows how to politic nationally. He's come out and said, we should probably back off of this a little bit, back off of that. But then the second you step up and say something, the minions run to TV and trash you for saying that.
President Obama had a blunt message for Democrats at a private fundraiser in New Jersey over the weekend. Toughen up, he says. Democrats need to speak out more forcefully against you-know-who, that they should stop looking for a messiah, and it's going to require less navel-gazing and a little less whining. Now, billionaire Mark Cuban also took aim at political messaging on the left. This has not been about Democrats laying back. This has been about y'all. This has been about y'all because their messaging was always the same. Democrats have been angry at what this man tried to do the last time. They've been angry this time. So with much due respect to you both, I believe you are pointing the finger at the wrong person when you say Democrats.
Even some lighthearted criticism gets met with that every single time. So let me show you an example of what they're going to try to do. We've discussed before how Democrats, they will attempt to walk a tightrope, a very careful tightrope. And their tightrope is this. It's very difficult to walk. They understand the average Democrat voter now, it's not some union guy, it's something like that. The average Democrat voter now is an America-hating demon. That's just, look, go look at the poll numbers for what they wanted to do to people who weren't vaccinated. Democrat voters are insane. That is the direction the party has gone. And even the Democrats who aren't that way are too scared to bring anything else up. Democrats who want to get elected know, I have to let the animals know I'm going to burn down America as if I can. But you can't come out and say that because then you can't win elections. So they're going to try to walk the tightrope, let the animals know you'll burn down America, but say things that make normie American kind of think you're one of the reasonable ones. You want a perfect example of this? Listen to Gavin Newsom's answer on the Sean Ryan show. Listen to this.
You care about farmers and ranchers, if that's what your number one go-to commitment, then you sure as hell should care about their workers. 41% of our construction workers, Texas and California have the highest percentage of their construction workers that would fall into that category. How the hell do we rebuild Altadena and Palisades? We're going to need a peak next year. We estimate about 70,000 workers. Without that workforce, ain't going to happen. You're struggling here. You imagine a peak there. So I think there needs to be a pathway for those folks as we secure the border, and we own that issue.
Do you feel that they're taking American jobs?
Not in Tulare County. Not in Ventura County. I don't know many people that want a job out there in those packing facilities. Mm-hmm. I don't see many people look like me jumping at those jobs. I just don't. Maybe there's some exceptions. I haven't seen the evidence of that.
Sounds reasonable, right? Hey, what about the farmers? Don't you remember the Palisades? Don't you feel bad for the Palisades? A pathway for citizenship, but we'll secure the border. Tightrope. The demons hear what they want. The normies hear what they want. That's going to be the Democrat strategy for 2026 and 2028. Get ready. We'll be talking a lot about the tightrope. I love my cell phone company. I hang out with the Pure Talk boys on multiple occasions. When we hang out, they're usually hanging out with Medal of Honor winners. Like we go get Mexican food, and it's just Pure Talk and Medal of Honor winners and just talking about vets and what the vets need and life. Have you ever heard of a cell phone company like that? Does AT&T do that? T-Mobile? Verizon? Switch to the patriotic mobile company. You're on the same network, so you're not going to be dropping calls. They love this country. They hire Americans. You'll pay way less. Look, if it's just about money, I pay half of what I was paying at T-Mobile. Pure Talk makes it easy to switch. They'll save you a fortune. And if you want a new phone, they've got that too. Go to puretalk.com/JesseTV. Put your money where your morals are. Well, look, I realize Republicans are in the middle of our own little dust up here and controversy, and there is a split, and there's good and bad, and I got all that. That's the way it goes. But man alive, it's not going well for Democrats. They're nationally unpopular, and some of them might be going to jail. Maybe. I don't know. Joining me now, John Phillips, host of the amazing John Phillips Show, my go-to on so much of this stuff. Okay, John, is Adam Schiff going to jail?
If you put people in jail for lying on bank forms, I think there's no question about it. That's exactly what he did. As a member of Congress in the state of California, you're required to maintain your residency here. Now, before he was elected to the U.S. Senate and That was a close election, at least in the primary, where he and Steve Garvey were running neck and pencil neck. And he, of course, ended up winning that seat and moving from the House to the Senate. But he basically had moved his family from California to Maryland a long time ago. If you're a congressman from one of those East Coast states, it's easy. As we know, Joe Biden would ride the Amtrak. Some of them, if you represent Maryland or nearby states, you can just drive to the Capitol. But if you represent California, that's a long flight. That's a 6-hour flight. So a lot of them just move their wife, they move their kids to DC, and they basically live there. And it's kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod. Okay, you maintain a residence in California. And that's what he did. But he bought this large, opulent house in Maryland. And what he needed to do to secure the good loan was to tell the bank that that was his domicile, that was his primary residence. And that's what he put down on all of those bank documents. Now, if that was your primary residence, then you're a resident of Maryland. You're not a resident of California, and you would not qualify for the ballot to be a member of Congress representing the state of California. But he basically told the bank that that was his residence and no one else. Everyone else was told that he lives in this tiny little 1-bedroom, I think it is, condo in Burbank. He's got a large family, wife, couple of kids. And we're supposed to believe that they're living in a tiny little condo in Burbank when they have this big house in Maryland that's just, a secondary home. No one's buying it.
Okay, it certainly sounds sleazy, not surprising at all because it's Adam Schiff. I mean, that's really kind of what he does, but it also doesn't sound like that's the kind of thing that's going to have him in an orange jumpsuit, and I don't like to oversell people and underdeliver. This doesn't sound like it's going to go all the way, but am I wrong?
It just depends on the jurisdiction. So there are members of the California legislature in the same county as Adam Schiff, Los Angeles County, that ended up going to jail for doing just that. So if you're a member of the House in California, you can live anywhere you want in the state. You don't have to live in your district. It's politically beneficial to live in your district, but you don't have to live there. If you are a member of the state legislature or a member of the city council in Los Angeles, let's say, the state of California requires you to live in the district. If you don't live in the district, you are subject to prosecution. There is a state senator by the name of Rod Wright who represented a district in Los Angeles County that he did not live in. He had a property there, but he didn't live there, and they could prove it. And he was criminally convicted and did some time. There is a member of the LA City Council who did the same thing. He represented a district he did not live in. They could prove that. He was criminally convicted and is barred from running for office again here in California. So we have prosecuted that before in the county that Adam Schiff lives in. Now we have a different district attorney now, and I don't think this guy is going to be as aggressive as Steve Cooley was, but it is something that they typically do enforce in LA County.
How about that? Well, that would be something to see. All right, we're going to stay in California because Gavin Newsom he's so transparent, he might as well be a window. He's going on right-wing podcasts to try to make himself not look like the spawn of Satan that he is. Here he was on Sean Ryan's show, all about them guns.
Brother, this is fabulous. You know what? Last thing people would expect is that I respect this gift.
Really?
I appreciate, yeah, man. I'm not anti-gun at all. I'm for just some gun safe common sense that I think vast majority of folks on the right and the left agree. And I think we've lost a little touch with some common sense around background checks.
He's just about common sense, John.
Oh, yeah. When he was lieutenant governor and he was trying to make noise for his run for governor of California, he did so by advocating for gun control. I mean, that was his entire cause when he was lieutenant governor, and he tried to attach himself to that issue so that he could, increase his name ID and get his name in the newspapers and all of those things. But now that he has to run in South Carolina, man, he's just John Wayne. He doesn't even flip the switch to turn the light off at home. He just shoots it out.
He also still does have a bit of a COVID problem. Joe Rogan apparently sent in a question, and here it was.
This is from Joe Rogan.
Oh, God.
This is a tough one.
He won't have me on the show, by the way.
Who will be held accountable for mandating COVID-19 vaccines for children, which were unnecessary and ineffective? And who will take responsibility for the unprecedented increases in myocarditis and cancer cases among them? Second to that, do you feel any remorse for that draconian decision that was obviously heavily influenced by the pharmaceutical companies' desire for maximum profit?
Yeah, I've signed some of the most progressive laws against big pharma in the country, so I have receipts on that. So no one should suggest that it was about doing the bidding of big pharma. Quite the contrary. And I know everyone's a goddamn genius now in hindsight, but at the time, none of us knew what we were up against, including the President of the United States, who I worked very closely with. There wasn't a Democratic governor in America that worked closer during the pandemic than I did with Donald Trump.
John, I don't need any help to hate Gavin Newsom, but I'll tell you, brother, he's pretty slippery. Is this act going to work?
You notice, by the way, that the swearing is part of the new act, too, where he comes across as more authentic. It just curses nonstop. So now it's Governor Andrew Dice Newsom. It's not just the vaccine requirements that he was responsible for. And believe me, we had them. I could not go to dinner without showing proof of vaccination. They would not let me in the building. He turned the hosts and hostesses of restaurants into his vaccine police. And that happened all over the state. They punished people who chose not to take the vaccine. But just take the vaccines off the table for a second. He would do things like arrest people for windsurfing in the ocean by themselves. He shut down the golf courses. He shut down the tennis courts. He shut down the parks. He shut down all of these things that had nothing to do with the spread of COVID. And if you complained about it, you were anti-science. And we've later learned that people like Adam Schiff would work with Silicon Valley to try to deplatform you so your voice wouldn't be out in the public domain. As I learned, by the way, from a lawsuit that was brought up against the Department of Public Health, the LA County Department of Public Health, through documents that were uncovered in that lawsuit, I found out that Adam Schiff and the LA County Department of Public Health were trying to get me kicked off of Twitter. So I say this not as someone who read about it in the paper, but someone who they actively tried to silence over all of this. And then you have the schools, where the schools were shut down for over a year. And as part of the agreement for them to go back in some of these districts, including the largest districts in the state, they had to agree to all kinds of pay increases. They had to agree to defund the school police. This long laundry list of left-wing Christmas wishes were granted to finally get the teachers to come back to work. That's Gavin Newsom's California. And that's the story that he doesn't want the rest of the nation to know. But that is the story of what life was like in California during COVID. And he can go on these podcasts and he can try to rewrite history all he wants. All they have to do to disprove his claims is to talk to someone who lives here, and we'll tell you what life was like under Warden Newsom.
Does the voter know that, though, John? I know, obviously, your listeners are going to know that. People who watch this are going to know that. But voters are, en masse, fickle beasts. They forget quickly. There's new problems, new this, new that, new scandal, new this. Have people let it go?
Here's the thing with Gavin Newsom. When the focus is on Gavin Newsom and his performance in California, his numbers drop like a stone. His numbers are not strong in California. What he does when his numbers start to go down is he picks a fight with the federal government. He picks a fight with Donald Trump, and he tries to federalize everything because we are a deep blue state. So if the focus is on COVID or the bullet train or the state budget or the insurance crisis or a failure to mitigate for fire risk or whatever the case may be, his numbers go down. But if he picks a fight with Donald Trump and looks like the leader of the resistance, or if he picks a fight over abortion, or he goes at it with Ron DeSantis or Greg Abbott, his numbers go up. Because politics is so tribal right now. If he looks just like the Democratic standard bearer, if he looks like the angriest Democrat in the room who's pushing back the hardest on Donald Trump, then in a partisan context, he becomes more popular. And that's what he does to save himself in California. He runs away from his own record in California. If that Democratic primary is about how California was run while he was governor, he's going to lose. If that Democratic primary becomes who hates Donald Trump the most, he could be the actor that reads that script probably better than many of them.
He is a wily one. John, thank you, brother. As always, I appreciate you. All right. Let's talk about freshness, because that's kind of a big deal. Well, at least sometimes we think it's a big deal. Sometimes we take that seriously. If you're out buying apples and oranges, you want fresh ones, right? You care about fresh bread, of course. Fresh meat, of course. Then why don't we take that same level of seriousness when it comes to olive oil? We put olive oil in virtually everything. We cook with it. It's good for you, but we go grab a bottle off the grocery shelf and it's old, months old, a year old. Stop doing that. Let me tell you about something. Farmfresh246.com. Here's what it is. Olive oil, fresh from the farm. Fresh from the farm. You want to know if there's a difference in taste? Well, allow me to give you a free bottle. It's a $39 bottle. All you pay is $1 to help cover the shipping. Go to farmfresh246.com and taste the difference. The Supreme Court gave us another win, I think. I don't know. Half the time I think they gave us a win, but that's because I'm stupid, and then I'll dig into it, and I'll find out that we didn't get a win. Let's ask Josh Hammer about it. Joining me now, Josh Hammer, host of the Josh Hammer Show. Josh, what did the Supreme Court do with education? Linda McMahon? Are we done with the Department of Education permanently?
Well, Jesse, not to be a lawyer, but you did intro me as a lawyer. It kind of depends what we mean by permanently. So, look, this is, not the typical merits docket where we have the full lawyers do the full briefing and argumentation there. This kind of comes up on the emergency appeals docket. And long story short, yes, the Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to dismiss at least 1,300 Department of Education staffers, which is a lot. That is a lot of bureaucrats there at the Department of Education. A bureaucracy, frankly, that simply should not exist, and that conservatives have been railing against ever since Jimmy Carter established it during the late 1970s. It is a commonsensical ruling, Jesse. I mean, ultimately, the Article 2 executive power, if the executive power in Article 2 of the Constitution means literally anything whatsoever, it necessarily entails and requires the ability to make full personnel decisions, to fire and hire whoever you want for whatever reason at any time, period, full stop, end of story. And any statutes that Congress has passed, any executive orders that have been signed over the past 200, nearly 50 years now, that purport to limit the authority of the executive to do exactly that are, in my judgment, facially unconstitutional. This is very much in line with the Roberts Court, especially in recent years. They are very good when it comes to structural bread and butter constitutional issues. They're not perfect, to be clear. John Roberts definitely messes up, every now and then, perhaps, if we're being honest, perhaps every more than now and then. But on really kind of core, here's what Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 type decisions, they're typically pretty good. This is very much in line with the nationwide injunctions case, which is a very kind of similar bread and butter structural constitutionalism issue. The takeaway, I think, for the median American is that, yeah, you're about to lose a bunch of deep state swamp monsters at the Department of Education. That's really, really good. Now, technically speaking, Jesse, because the Department of Education was created via congressional statute back during the Jimmy Carter presidency, it technically, officially would take an act of Congress to literally abolish the building. But it seems to me, if I'm reading this opinion correctly, that the court has basically given Trump leeway to fire effectively as many bureaucrats as you want. So you can basically gut the thing effectively, if not technically officially, if you catch my drift.
Okay, no, I catch your drift. So we can't get rid of the Department of Education, but we can just about everyone in the building and basically end it for a while. Does this only apply to the Department of Education? You'll have to forgive me for asking the question, Josh, because I dream of the days where IRS agents and FBI agents get fired en masse.
It definitely should not just apply to the Department of Education. There is absolutely nothing whatsoever about the legal logic of this order that would cabinet to the Education Department. Now, look, if the administration wants to go out and start firing 1,500, 2,000 people at some other alphabet soup agency, I'm sure some left-wing NGOs will immediately follow suit on behalf of the deep state employees who would be axed. And then we'll kind of find ourselves back to where we just are. But if the court's going to be consistent, I mean, if and perhaps when that similar subsequent follow-on lawsuit is filed, if the court is just going to apply the exact same constitutional principles time and time again, and then they're going to arrive at the exact same conclusion. But, one thing that's really important about the Department of Education is that it is the lowest of the low-hanging fruit. This has been kind of a test case for conservative legal folks for 4 to 5 decades now. If you cannot gut the Department of Education, then you are stuck with the federal Leviathan and all that entails, because the Department of Education is basically the lowest of the low. This is something that never should have existed, and it is very good news, frankly, that they've cleared the way for Trump to effectively, again, if not quite officially, gut it.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about the autopen stuff as it pertains to Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, what I do not want to do, as you know, is to give people false hope or cook up some wild theory that's never going to come home. I don't want to do the Obama birth certificate thing. Whatever people believe about that, it was never going to do anything to remove Barack Obama from the White House, so it was a pointless waste of time. Ketanji Brown Jackson, was she an autopenner, and can we get rid of her?
Jesse, like you, I am hesitant to try to induce people into thinking that something could happen that won't. So the short answer is no. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Now, Ketanji Brown Jackson definitely is a few things. She's a grade A moron. I mean, that is primarily what she is. She is frankly just a gigantic insult to the United States Supreme Court. We saw those fiery words from Amy Coney Barrett in the Nationwide Injunctions case. More recently, actually, we saw some fiery words from Sonia Sotomayor in an 8-1 opinion where Jackson was the lone dissenter. It was actually Sonia Sotomayor. I can't believe this is real life. It was literally Sonia Sotomayor who was essentially calling Ketanji Brown Jackson crazy in the recent 8-1 opinion. So she's totally, completely insane, utterly unqualified, totally out to lunch. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Jesse, but I don't see it happening when it comes to trying to get her off the court. She could be impeached. That could potentially happen. It's probably not going to happen, but that would be the proper remedy there. This autopen thing is probably not going to get rid of her, though. Okay, now on the autopen thing, again, I'm just trying to, I appreciate the honesty. I'm trying to give everybody realistic expectations here. The pardons, there were lots of them handed out by Joe Biden. We now know in the fluffiest possible way, the New York Times reported it's a fact. It's a fact people are willing to admit now that Joe Biden didn't sign off on all these pardons, which of course makes people think about Fauci, Mark Milley, Hunter Biden, even people who did get pardons. Can those go away? So the short answer is probably not, but I'll walk you through my thinking on this. So there is a White House counsel legal opinion. So nowadays we have something at the White House counsel office called, or it's actually technically at the DOJ called the OLC, the Office of Legal Counsel. They are the ones who come up with constitutional theories that then try to bind succeeding presidencies years from now. Okay, so the White House counsel, I think prior to the establishment of the formal OLC back in the 1960s, a 1960s era White House counsel opinion basically says that using an autopen is legally equivalent of the English king back in medieval England of delegating authority to use the royal seal, like the literal royal seal, to like the prince or the courtier, someone in the royal court there. So the upshot is that according to this 1960s White House opinion, this seems to be okay. Now, the longer answer is that this has really never been tested. This has never been litigated really whatsoever to my knowledge. And I'm inclined to think that it's not necessarily so utterly frivolous so as to be not worth a case. Now, I'm choosing my words very carefully, again, so as to not induce false hope. I'm skeptical that this would go anywhere because, among other things, I would question what the remedy is. So let's talk about some of these people who got pardons. Let's just say hypothetically, right, that a court then concludes that this pardon was issued illegitimately because the autopen is not legitimate. In order to get standing in a federal court, you have to have a judicially viable remedy, which is a very fancy way of saying the court has to be in a position where it can actually give legitimate relief. So in this case, what exactly is the relief? I mean, let's say that someone was in jail for XYZ offense, and now he's out, living out in Kansas or Idaho, whatever. He's enjoying his fishing on the river. I mean, is the remedy that you would literally then go take that guy and then put him back in jail? It just doesn't. It doesn't necessarily feel like something that a federal court would be eager to do. Is basically what I'm trying to say here. But it's not so crazy that it is not worth a lawsuit. I think it probably actually ultimately is worth a lawsuit.
Okay. Well, that sucks, Josh. That's 2 doses of reality that sucked. Let me ask you a final one. There's reporting out there, John Solomon, others reporting that a bunch of people are about to go down for the Russia hoax conspiracy. Now, go down for normal people like you and me means we get handcuffed and sent off to prison. For government people, it never means that at all. But is there a chance that the criminals who operated and still operate inside of our government actually get arrested and tried and sent to prison over all this?
I think it's possible. I'm not necessarily going to say it's probable. I mean, Jesse, at this point, we're basically 10 years. I mean, the year is 2025. We are 10 years, at least 9 years, but 9 to 10 years, give or take, from the 2016 election, spying on George Papadopoulos and Michael Flynn and Carter Page and all the various Trump aides. I mean, this has been happening for a long time now. So whenever we kind of have these instances where we kind of learn 5-10 years, oh, maybe we'll get justice for something that happened a very long time ago, I'm kind of always immediately somewhat skeptical. I do think that there's a potential political angle here, Jesse, which is that it's possible that the Trump DOJ could really try in earnest to actually genuinely try to have something to show the people in the broader context of a lot of the popular discontent over the Epstein stuff. That to me is kind of my ultimate kind of, not necessarily my cause for optimism, but my cause for at least quasi-optimism is that could be a motivating factor to genuinely actually produce something here. I'm not saying it's likely, it's not 50% or greater necessarily, but I think it's a possibility at least. I guess I'll say that.
All right. Well, thanks for giving us at least a little crumb of something, Josh. Josh, appreciate you as always, brother. All right. All right. It is time to lighten the mood. And wildlife encounters can be scary things. This gentleman, he knows what I'm talking about.
I heard the roar. I felt that roar. I knew to keep it pushing. I knew that.
Curtis Jones says he was walking near Rauber Street late Wednesday when he saw people running from what appeared to be a large wild cat.
After I see the people run, I just see something big just walking, just right over here, right by the bush. It went right over here. I swear, I promise you, it went right over there. And it said roar, and I just kept walking. I seen me see it. So in my head, I'm like, nah, I gotta go, man. I'm out. About like this big. Word. It was just walking, slithering. Like it was, I don't know, man.
A shelter in place was ordered and then lifted when RPD was unable to verify the presence of a wild animal. Police say no reports have been substantiated. Jones tells me he remains on edge.
Gotta keep this bat right here, man. I'm gonna keep this bat right here, man, just in case. I'm gonna protect this. I ain't gonna let nothing happen to us, nothing, okay? They ain't find it last night. It's still out here. It could be out here in one of these bushes or something. You know, them mountain lions, they be, wow, they be crawling and, you know, they serious. I don't play with lions. I don't play with tigers, bears, nothing with the wild. I don't play with those. I promise you. I don't even do roller coasters. I'm good.
I'll see you tomorrow.